So for Ghosts Are Real, I'm going to go into one of my personal favorites. These are ghost photos. Now, there's two things that kind of freak me out. If there's anything that freaks me out, these are the two main things that kind of freak me out. The top one, number one, 100% with a bullet, is anything to do with phones. Now, if I hear stories, I've had experiences like stuff has happened at my tours where the phones will act weird or something will occur. I can tell that story another time, but so anything with phones freaks me out, and in horror movies too. And the other one is photos. I've seen some amazing photos over the years. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and of course the majority, unfortunately, is an orb photo. Personally, that is my belief. Whatever you believe in orbs is up to you. I respect that. But with my approach to it, orb photos, there's just too much natural phenomenon. So with the natural phenomenon, you get the idea that something has occurred when it hasn't. So if there's like moisture, if there's dust, if there's whatever. So that's why I push it aside with orb photos. But then sometimes you get these photos where it is just undeniably that there is something there. Now, I talked about it in last week's Gossipy Gossip episode about a ghost photo that was not. And that one was quite obviously not. If you want to see that, you can go to the Ghost Guy Daniel page. It is December 30th post. Please head there. I didn't get much traction on that one. December 30th post, like that is an obvious fake. But there's other ones that have these elements to them that make them more real. And these ones that I'm going to talk about today, for me, are some very legitimate ones. Now, there's other ones out there, but these are the ones I'm going to focus on because of their backstories and because of my own personal experience with it, and just in the sense of somebody who has had a lot of experience in seeing these photos, what elements that I would attribute to it when I see it from my own experience of what would make it more legit. That's where it's coming from right now. So I have three for you here. I'll start with the not so famous one and then go into the famous ones. Not so famous one is from the Hermitage. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, basically the Hermitage is one of our Ghost Walk locations. It's technically Hamilton. It's a small town called Ancaster. It's part of Hamilton. Very historic place. Ruins of an 1850s mansion in the middle of the forest. And this was 2-3 years ago that somebody sent me a photo from the Hermitage. I just want it in front of me here. Hermitage. Okay, so it sent me a photo. They said it was from 1977. This was from Stephen S. I won't give away his last name, but from 1977, and it's quite interesting. You can see it at Ghost Guy Daniel. It is January 3rd's post. And on the right-hand side in the trees, you can see what looks like a shadow. Now, this is interesting for a couple reasons. First off, that is kind of an active spot when you go to the right of the ruins. Not so much today, but back in those days, it had this certain energy about it. And that space created a lot of experiences for people. I'll get into that in a second. And the second reason why it's important is because the way it looks, shadows are quite common for this location. And now I am talking this from experience. I saw two shadows there walking in the field, and they disappeared into the woods. So for me personally, I do know that there's something to the shadow experience at the Hermitage ruins. So you have this shadow. That's the picture. I invite you to go look at it on the Ghost Guy Daniel Facebook page. So the Hermitage itself was a house from the 1850s built by the Leith family. And then over the years, they lived there until the early 1900s. George Leith's youngest daughter, Alma, then takes it over. She lives there. She actually was in the house when the fire occurred that turned it into ruins. And then she stayed there even after that, first in the tent out front, and then a little wooden structure on the inside. And that's, eventually where she died. I think it was around the 1940s. So she was dedicated to this location. So there's her energy, and then over the years being a remote location, people coming out to experience the ghosts and tell ghost stories, created an energy about it. And that's one of the reasons why we focus on it for a ghost tour. Now, that location on the side where the shadow is being seen, as I mentioned, was quite active. And the two things were either seeing lights or hearing voices. Now, the seeing lights was shared to us by one of our longtime helpers, close friend, Gary. And he was one of the first ones to experience this. But it's funny, you get that first initial pioneer. And then over the years, people who are not connected to him, haven't heard him speak about it. Anybody who's on the inside knows that there's a joke there. He wouldn't speak about it to anybody because of what he's doing at the ghost walks those nights. But he saw the lights in the veil, and then other people have confirmed that experience by also seeing lights. It's kind of like in the distance in the woods. And because you're in the middle of the Dundas Valley forest at night, you can make out the lights quite easily. So he'd see them, and then on a couple occasions, people have talked about hearing voices. Now, one of the stories we feature on the tour has a young lady who first felt anxiety and dread when she went up to the ruins. And then when she went around the side, we used to have to go around it before you could go through it. It used to be fenced off. That she heard voices from the trees. Now, she said she couldn't make out what they were saying. They were kind of muffled, and she looked at everybody else in the group, and they weren't hearing it. So she didn't say anything out loud, and she only told us afterwards. So you have the lights, you have the voices, which other people have confirmed as well. So it creates a focal point at the side of the ruins. Now, me personally, I don't think that's the most energetic area. But then again, when you have a photo like this taken and you're just an off chance that the energy has gathered at the moment that you've taken the shot, then it makes sense that something would appear. And it's from the front, not from the back. My personal experience is that most of the energy seems to be from the back, especially back towards the laundry house, which I've had experiences in the middle of the field where the house and structures used to go. Of course, that would be a focal point. So go out, have a look at the photo, tell me what you think. So that was the not so famous one. The couple of famous ones I want to bring up, the one is on the page right now, Freddie Jackson photo. It's on the Ghost Guy Daniel Facebook page. And then the other one, I believe, posts tonight. I'm just going to check that, make sure. There's Freddie Jackson and schedule. Yeah, so the other one posts actually tomorrow night. Whoopsie. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and reschedule that for tonight. Let's reschedule. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. I'm looking out for you guys. I hope you appreciate it. Okay, so I'll start with the Freddie Jackson ones. That's the ones up. You can look up these ones yourself, too. I'll give the name of it, but Freddie Jackson, I have a great photo on the page here that just kind of shows it in perfect sense. It's got the zoomed out and the zoomed in. So the story is this airplane mechanic in the year 1919, he was working on a plane, and towards the front, he's near the propeller. Of course, the plane's not firing up, but you kind of expect what's about to happen next, and it's exactly what it is. Very tragic. The propeller starts up, kills him instantly. So you have a couple of factors that play into this ghost photos that give it legitimacy. Of course, the third factor I'm not mentioning is the legitimacy of the actual photo. It is a creepy looking thing. I mean, you just got this one of the soldiers' faces, and it's almost like somebody is standing directly behind him, just kind of peeking out, and you can see the face very clearly. So you have that element, but then as well, the two ones leading up to it. So first off, he was killed instantly, which means in a lot of cases that he is not going to know that he is dead. Now, this, of course, is just an assumption. They call it the unknown for a reason. I probably won't know this until the day I die, but I would just assume, right? I mean, if you're killed instantly, then you wouldn't know, right? You would go on into the spirit realm and not realize what's going on. I don't think you would play out your life. I mean, you would be confused. You wouldn't know where you were, but maybe the lack of a physical brain would create confusion. But I'm going on a tangent here. But the idea is that, if he was killed instantly and didn't know he was dead, that's one element. But the other element is that his energy was set in motion towards this event of taking the photo with his fellow soldiers, this military photo that you'll see on the page there. So those two factors, that he probably doesn't know he's dead and that he knows he is heading to this photo, set his energy in motion to show up. And that's what you see in the photo, is that this guy that the other soldiers have confirmed looks like Freddie Jackson, that he has shown up to the photo. Now, whether you believe that, and I know other skeptics have said about this, and I want to present kind of a skeptic point of view, which in ways is very easy for me, because I like to approach it from a skeptical view. I don't like to believe everything I hear. That a skeptic point of view would say, okay, if you zoom in on the photo, which I will do in a second here, if you zoom in on the photo, that you can actually, that the soldier in the front, that the image that's appearing behind him looks like him. Sorry, that was my phone. That the image is appearing behind him looks like him, that it could just be some kind of weird exposure that, old photos did all the time. So if a skeptic point of view, you can say that, but then I'm looking at it, and what I see, like, you can see the face, but then above, you can almost see like the forehead. And with the soldier standing in front, he's wearing a hat. And I think that's a saving grace here, if you want to believe in this photo, is that the forehead is showing, but on the actual person, there's no forehead. So for me, and I don't think that's been manipulated, for me, I would say, okay, there's no hat. It can't be your odd exposure that's occurring here. So Freddie Jackson is one of my favorites. If out of all ghost photos, I do kind of give a lot of legitimacy to this one because of what I just told you there. So the other one is, the other famous one is a place called Bachelor's Grove. Now, if you want to look it up and not have to wait for my post to go tonight, just look up Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. Now, this is a cemetery or a burial ground that's located just out of the side of the city of Chicago. And as ghost photos go, this one is probably the closest of the famous ghost photos to us personally. I'm talking about world famous. So Bachelor's Grove is a burial ground. Now, if you've listened to my shows before, you've been on the tours, you might have heard, especially the Ruthven tour, you might have heard us talk about how we don't believe cemeteries are haunted. Unless there's extenuating circumstances, most cemeteries don't have ghosts. And our reasoning, a lot of people agree with this idea, is that there's no life energy there. People didn't live in cemeteries, and by the time that their bodies get to these burial grounds, there's nothing left. There's no energy there. Now, of course, you have the sadness from the family, and you have the mixture of our general fear of death. So if you combine those two things, it makes cemeteries creepy, but I think part of the creepiness is the fact that it is void of any feeling whatsoever. So if you are scared of death, you will fear a cemetery. But if you're not scared of death, you will kind of see it as a tranquil place because there's no emotional energy that's imprinted on the space. But whether you see it from point A or point B, in the end, it doesn't seem like a cemetery would be haunted to me. And in my experience, that has been the case. Now, of course, there are your extenuating circumstances. I'll give you one example, is in the city of Niagara Falls. On the Canadian side, there's a cemetery called Drummond Hill. And this is on Lundy's Lane. Now, Lundy's Lane is aptly named because the Battle of Lundy's Lane from the War of 1812 occurred on that spot, and that spot included the space where Drummond Hill Cemetery is now standing today. So when you have that tragic energy that occurred in one of the most violent battles in the only war fought on Canadian soil, then of course you're going to have energy left over from it. And there are experiences in Drummond Hill Cemetery. So then you always got to ask the question, well, if a cemetery is haunted like Bachelor's Grove, which the photo hopefully proves, then where is that energy coming from? So then the next thing you have to do is look into the history of the location. This is very important in the paranormal investigation game. So when you look at the history, you got to hope something stands out. And with Bachelor's Grove, it stands out in a really good way. So Chicago is known for deep dish pizza, but it is also known for something else. During the Prohibition days, one of the most famous bootleggers / mobsters in world history. Everybody knows this fellow's name, Al Capone. Now he ran out of Chicago, and as was proven here in Hamilton, which is kind of like the Chicago of the North when it came to the mob from Prohibition on, that you needed a location for disposal. I'm going to explain what that means. So disposal is the people who are rats, stoolies, the ones that go against your own people, the ones that turn on the mob, or the ones that just don't do their job very well. You gotta kind of dispose of them, right? Anybody seen The Godfather, you know what I mean. So in Hamilton, the area was known as Mount Albion, and in Chicago, the area was known as, and I'm not even going to try to say the name of the town, but it is the town where Bachelor's Grove is located. So Bachelor's Grove was a dumping ground for the mob. Now, I don't know the reason why. It was remote. They could have dumped them anywhere in the forest there. There's a lot of forests. But I think it was because Bachelor's Grove was already a cemetery, right? That would be the reason why they would focus on it, because there's already dead people in the ground, so what does it matter if you add a few more? I don't know if it's superstition or the fact that they might think that the cops would be hesitant to dig up graves, like actual official graves, to look for the bodies. Whatever it is, they chose that spot. So there you have an extenuating circumstance that I know they brought the bodies out there. Is also very possible that they also committed the deeds, like killed the people out there as well before burying them. So that would be an extenuating circumstance. So the photo, which I believe is from the 1980s. So just do a quick search, Madonna of Bachelor's Grove in Google. Okay. Yeah, so 1991. I'm sorry, 1991. A photographer named Judy Huff Feltz. I believe she was a paranormal investigator. Correct me if I am wrong. So 1991, she was at Bachelor's Grove doing an investigation and took a photo of the entire burial ground and noticed something in the distance. Now, I will describe the photo here. Again, it'll be on the Ghost Guy Daniel page. So in the distance, just beyond a tree, there's a figure sitting on a gravestone. Now, in some of these ghost photos, you can question what you're looking at. In the Freddie Jackson one, you can't. And in this one, you cannot. 100% cannot. This is a woman sitting on a gravestone. Now, so it was said that it was a shot of the whole burial ground, and then they zoomed in just beyond the tree for this woman. And who she is, what she's doing there, I don't think anybody really knows. I don't think she would have been a victim of the mob. I don't think they ever, I would actually fathom that they never killed women, innocent women especially. some circumstances they might if the woman was involved for some reason, although I think that was more in Hamilton than in Chicago. But here we have a woman sitting on a gravestone, so why would she be there? I would question that. I don't know. Connected to some of the original graves, maybe. Connected to maybe her husband was one of the victims of Al Capone. I don't know. But she's there. So you take a look at the photo. There is no questioning that that is a woman sitting on a gravestone. Now, I might question why it's in black and white, and I might also question the pixelation of it. Even though it is from 1991, which you wouldn't think photos are as great, I'm pretty sure this was taken professionally, like with a decent camera. So the pixelation seems to be a little bit too much. The fact that it's black and white makes me question, because it wouldn't be black and white photos in the 90s. And that's why I always ask the question. I see some of these ghost photos, the blurrier they are, the less validity I give to them. So that would be where I do the question. But the supporting evidence for this ghost photo is the location. The fact that it's so uniquely tragic that the location was an 1800s pioneer cemetery or burial ground, and then, of course, a dumping ground for the mob, which in Chicago was rampantly out of control. And then you also come back to today, and you have multiple experiences at that location, like seeing full-fledged apparitions, and there's a lake nearby. Much of the stuff around the lake, some of the farms that were in the area, they say there's energy from that. So all of that is supporting, and the fact that I am told that analysis has been done on this photo and that nothing odd was found about it. So the supporting elements in my mind do overtake the non-supporting elements. So for that reason, I am a full believer and do believe this is something real. You might disagree, but there's no disagreeing that it is one of the most known ghost photos in the entire world, and one of the very few famous ghost photos to come from North America. I believe there's another one that happened down in Tombstone, Arizona, but this one being up in Chicago, it's closer to myself, so near and dear to my own heart. So check them out. Check out the photos. The last one's going to go up tonight at 7:05 p.m. on Ghost Guy Daniel Facebook page. And if you have any comments or anything,